Good morning all. Today we are going to study about anatomy of trachea and aorta. Both are important topics from examination point of view. So let us discuss about trachea. The unique number of competency is 24.6. Describe the extent, length, relations, blood supply, lymphatic drainage and nerve supply of the trachea. Trachea is a wide tube lying in the midline in the lower part of the neck and in the superior mediastinum of the thorax. It is a wide tube lying in the midline of the neck and also in the superior mediastinum of the thorax. It is a cartilaginous and membranous tube lying in the midline in the lower part of the neck and also in the superior mediastinum of the thorax. Extent, it extends from the cricoid cartilage of the larynx on a level with C6 vertebra up to the level of the angle of Lewis, that is sternal angle, or you can say that it extends up to T4 or T5 vertebra, where it divides into two bronchi, one for each lung. Coming to the next slide, the structure of the trachea. The trachea is a rigid fibroelastic structure, as you can see in this diagram. It is made up of incomplete rings of hyaline cartilage. Remember that the trachea is lined by hyaline cartilage. So it is made up of incomplete rings of hyaline cartilage continuously to maintain the patency of the lumen of the trachea. And internally, the trachea is lined by ciliated columnar epithelium. As you already know that we have studied in the histology of the respiratory system that the respiratory epithelium, mainly the trachea, it is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Now coming to the parts of the trachea, trachea has been divided into cervical part and the thoracic part based on its location. The upper half of the trachea is located in the neck, which is known as the cervical part, as you can see in this picture. The lower half lies in the superior mediastinum of the thoracic cavity, so hence it is known as the thoracic part of the trachea. Now the lumen of the trachea, it is smaller in living human than that in cadavers, because it increases, the diameter increases in cadavers because of the relaxation of the posterior smooth muscle, right? The trachea posteriorly, it is lined by a muscle which is known as the trachealis muscle. So the diameter increases in cadavers because of the relaxation of the posterior smooth muscle, and this knowledge is important for the selection of appropriate size of the tube during tracheal intubation by the anesthetists. Okay, you must remember that the cadavers have got larger diameter than in the living human because of the relaxation of the posterior smooth muscle of the trachea, and this knowledge helps you to select appropriate size of the tube during tracheal intubation. Now the trachea is composed of about 16 to 20 C-shaped rings of hyaline cartilage. As you can see in this picture, that the trachea, it is made up of 16 to 20 C-shaped rings of hyaline cartilage lying one above the other. Now the cartilage is deficient posteriorly, right? As you can see in this picture, the cartilage of the trachea, it is deficient, it is absent posteriorly, where the gap is filled by connective tissue and an involuntary muscle known as the trachealis. Now coming to the dimensions of the trachea, it measures about 11 centimeters in length. Its diameter from side to side is 2.0 centimeters in males and 1.5 centimeters in females. And the anterior-posterior diameter is 1.6 centimeters. Now the internal diameter of the trachea is 3 millimeters up to the third year. Then it increases by 1 millimeter each year up to 12th year. So you have to remember the dimensions of the trachea, that it measures about 11 centimeters in length. The transverse diameter is 2.0 centimeters in males, 1.5 centimeters in females. The anterior posterior diameter is 1.6 centimeters. The internal diameter of the trachea is 3 millimeters up to the age of 3rd year. Then it increases by 1 millimeters each year up to the 12th year. Now coming to the relations of the trachea, anteriorly in the neck, the trachea has following relations. The isthmus of the thyroid gland, as you can see in this picture, the trachea anterior is related to isthmus of the thyroid gland, the inferior thyroid veins, the sternothyroid and sternohyoid muscles. As you already know, we discussed in the head and neck, the sternothyroid and sternohyoid, these are the strap muscles which are located in the neck. They lie anterior to the trachea, and also the cervical fascia, which is the anterior relation of the trachea in the neck. Now, relations anteriorly in the thorax, the manubrium sterni, the remains of the thymus, the left innominate vein, that is the brachiocephalic vein. Innominate vein is nothing but the brachiocephalic vein. The aortic arch, the arch of aorta, is an anterior relation in the thorax of the trachea. Left common carotid artery and deep cardiac plexus. So these are the relations in the neck and thorax of the trachea. Now coming to the relations of the trachea posteriorly. Posteriorly, it is related to the esophagus, and laterally in the neck, the trachea is related to the common carotid arteries, right and left lobes of the thyroid gland, as you can see in this picture, the inferior thyroid arteries and the recurrent laryngeal nerves. So these are the relations of the trachea laterally in the neck. Now relations laterally in the thorax, it lies in the superior mediastinum. As we all know that the trachea in the thorax, it lies in the superior mediastinum. So laterally, the trachea, it is related to the pleura, which is the covering of the lungs, the right vagus nerve, the innominate artery, that is the brachiocephalic artery. These are on the right sides of the trachea. And on the left side of the trachea, the structures which are related are the left recurrent laryngeal nerve, the aortic arch, as you can see in this diagram, then the left common carotid artery, which is a branch from the arch of aorta, and the subclavian arteries. Now coming to the next slide, the trachea divides into two main bronchi, the right and left bronchi, at the level of sternal angle at the anatomical point which is known as carina. The carina is present in the last ring of the trachea, which surrounds the commencement of the two bronchi. The right bronchus, as you can see in this picture, it is shorter, wider and more vertical in direction than the left. It is about 2.5 centimeters in length. It enters the right lung nearly opposite the T5 vertebra. Whereas the left bronchus, it is smaller in caliber but longer than the right bronchus, as you can see in this diagram. It is about 5 centimeters long. It enters the root of the lung opposite the T6 vertebrae. Now you can see in this picture, the right bronchus, it is wider, shorter, steeper, 2 centimeters in length, whereas the left bronchus is narrower, it is longer, and it is more horizontal, 5 centimeters in length. Now inhaled foreign body is much more likely to enter the right bronchus because of the above facts. Now coming to the bronchi, the primary bronchi divide to form secondary bronchi, As you can see in this diagram, the two primary bronchi divide to form secondary bronchi, also known as the lobar bronchi. There is one secondary bronchus for each lobe of the lung. So the left lung has two lobes. So there are two lobar bronchi for the left lung, whereas the right lung has three lobes. So for the right lung we have three lobar bronchi. The left main bronchus enters the hilum and divides into superior and inferior lobar bronchi. The left main bronchus enters the hilum and divides into superior and inferior lobar bronchus. The right main bronchus gives off the bronchus to the upper lobe of the right lung prior entering the hilum, which is known as the superior lobar bronchus. And once into the hilum, once as it enters the hilum, divides into middle and inferior lobar bronchi. Now each lobar bronchus divides within the lobe into tertiary bronchus, also known as the segmental bronchi. As you can see in this diagram, these are the segmental bronchi. Now each segmental bronchus enters the bronchopulmonary segments, which has been discussed by the Akifa madam. Right, you know about bronchopulmonary segments. Now each bronchopulmonary segment is pyramidal in shape with its apex directed towards the hilum. Now each bronchopulmonary segment has its own segmental bronchus, artery and lymphatics. This you already know, right? So the veins draining each segments are intersegmental veins. So we can see in this diagram, the trachea is bifurcating into right and left principal bronchi, right? So you can make out the secondary bronchus over here, right? Then these are the segmental bronchi and the bronchiole. Now coming to the blood supply of the trachea, arterial supply, it is supplied by inferior thyroid arteries. As you can see in this diagram, the inferior thyroid artery, it is a branch from the thyrocervical trunk. Then the venous drainage, the veins from the trachea or the venous blood from the trachea drains into the left brachiocephalic vein. The left brachiocephalic vein. Lymphatic drainage, the lymphatics from the trachea drains into the pretracheal and paratracheal lymph nodes, as you can see in this diagram. Coming to the nerve supply of the trachea, trachea is supplied by parasympathetic and sympathetic fibers. Parasympathetic nerves through the vagus and recurrent laryngeal nerves. You can make out here the vagus and the recurrent laryngeal nerves. A sensory and secretomotor to the mucous membrane, motor to the trachealis muscle, two sympathetic fibers from the middle cervical ganglion reach along the inferior thyroid arteries, which are vasomotor. So this is the nerve supply of the trachea, the parasympathetic nerves through the vagi and recurrent laryngeal nerves, sensory and secretomotor to the mucous membrane of the trachea, and also motor to the trachealis muscle. Sympathetics, fibers from the middle cervical ganglion reach along the inferior thyroid arteries, which are vasomotor. Now coming to the clinical correlation, the tracheostomy. It is a life-saving surgical procedure done in cases of laryngeal obstruction. So it is commonly done in retrothyroid region after displacing the isthmus of the thyroid gland upwards and downwards. Now after displacing the isthmus of the thyroid, the trachea is opened by a vertical incision on the region of third and fourth or second and third tracheal rings. So this is then converted into a circular opening and the tracheostomy tube is inserted. So this is the clinical anatomy related to the trachea. Dear students, so far we have discussed about the extent of trachea, the relations of the trachea, blood supply, nerve supply of the trachea, and clinical correlation related to the trachea. Now we will move on to an important topic, arch of aorta and descending thoracic aorta. So we will focus on these two things mainly. Now as per the competency code 23.4, they may ask you mention the extent, branches and relations of the arch of aorta and descending thoracic aorta. Though the aorta has three divisions, I can say the ascending aorta, arch of aorta and descending thoracic aorta, but we will focus on arch of aorta and descending thoracic aorta. As per your new curriculum, we have got only these two things. Ascending aorta is not mentioned as per the new curriculum, but you should have knowledge of ascending aorta, the basic knowledge about ascending aorta, that it arises from the aortic orifice of the left ventricle, and it gives the main two important branches, the coronary arteries, right? So we'll discuss in detail about arch of aorta and descending thoracic aorta. Now the aorta is the largest artery of the body, right, which carries oxygenated blood from the left ventricle and supplies to all parts of the body. So that means aorta arises from the left ventricle of the heart, right? It carries oxygenated blood from the left ventricle and supplies to all parts of the body. The aorta initially is 1 inch wide in diameter. The aorta is classified as large elastic artery. This we have studied in histology of the blood vessels, that elastic artery, example for the elastic artery is aorta. Next, the aorta can be divided into 4 sections: ascending aorta, aortic arch, thoracic aorta. Now this is in the region of thorax. These 3 divisions, the ascending aorta, aortic arch, thoracic or the descending thoracic aorta. Then we have abdominal aorta. The first 3 parts are confined to the thoracic cavity and together create the thoracic aorta. So abdominal aorta we will be discussing in the abdomen, right? So it terminates at the level of L4 by bifurcating into left and right common iliac arteries. So aorta, it terminates at the level of L4 vertebra by bifurcating into left and right common iliac arteries. Coming to the arch of aorta or the aortic arch. Location, its location is in the superior mediastinum, as you can see in this diagram, and you can also see in an imaginary line passing from the manubriosternal joint, right, up to the lower border of T4, so which divides the mediastinum into superior and inferior mediastinum. So aorta, the arch of aorta, it lies in the superior mediastinum, right? So aortic arch is a continuation of the ascending aorta. So ascending aorta continues as the arch of aorta and begins at the level of second sternocostal joint. Remember this, the arch of aorta begins at the level of second sternocostal joint. Now it arches superiorly, then posteriorly and to the left before moving inferiorly. Aortic arch ends at the level of T4 vertebra. So we can see in this diagram that it ends at the level of T4 vertebra. So the aortic arch ends at the level of T4 vertebra, that is at the level of sternal angle. So it begins and ends at in the we can say the event which is occurring at the sternal angle. That arch of aorta begins and ends at the sternal angle. So the arch is still connected to the pulmonary trunk by the ligamentum arteriosum, which is a remnant of fetal ductus arteriosus, that we will be discussing in the next slide. Next, coming to the branches of arch of aorta. There are 3 major branches arising from the aortic arch. Number 1, the brachiocephalic trunk. Then number 2, left common carotid artery. Number 3, left subclavian artery. These are the 3 main branches arising from the arch of aorta, and you people have to remember, because this is frequently they are asking in practical examinations what are the branches of arch of aorta. So you must memorize these 3 branches. Now the brachiocephalic trunk, the first and largest branch that ascend laterally to split into right common carotid and right subclavian arteries. So this brachiocephalic trunk divides into right subclavian and right common carotid artery. So these arteries supply right side of the head and neck and right upper limb. Then left common carotid artery directly from the arch of aorta supplies the left side of the head and neck. The left subclavian artery supplies the left upper limb. Coming to the measurements of arch of aorta, it is about 3 centimeters in diameter at its origin, but it becomes lesser near its termination, that is about 2 centimeters. Now at its junction with descending aorta, at its junction with descending thoracic aorta, a small constriction known as isthmus. See, this isthmus is immediately followed by a dilatation. So these are the measurements of the arch of aorta, that it is 3 centimeter at its origin. And remember one thing, the diameter of the arch of aorta is same as of the ascending aorta. Now points to be noted in the course of arch of aorta. The arch of aorta arches over the root of left lung. This is an identification or the impression of the, what are the impressions of the left lung. If they ask you, you should tell that arch of aorta arches over the root of the left lung. It begins and ends at the same level, that is at sternal angle. Now coming to the relations of the arch of aorta, which is very, very important. Okay, we will see the anterior and to the left of the arch of aorta, as you can see in this diagram, right? The arch of aorta with 3 main branches here: brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid and left subclavian artery, right? So this arch of aorta, we will see the relations anterior and to the left. So anterior and to the left we have the left lung and pleura, the left phrenic nerve, and the left vagus nerve, as you can see in this diagram, and left cardiac nerves and left superior intercostal vein. So these are the relations of arch of aorta anteriorly and to the left: left lung and pleura, the left phrenic nerve, left superior intercostal vein, cardiac nerves and left vagus nerve. Then coming to the relations on the posterior and towards the right of the arch of aorta. So we can see here on the posterior aspect of the arch of aorta, the trachea. Then further posteriorly we can see esophagus, then the left recurrent laryngeal nerve, the thoracic duct and vertebral column. So these are the relations of arch of aorta posterior and to the right. Now coming to the superior relations of the arch of aorta, the superior relations of the arch of aorta we can make out in this diagram. Brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid and left subclavian artery. So these are the superior relations of the arch of aorta. That means the 3 branches of the arch of aorta are the superior relations of the arch of aorta. Then left brachiocephalic vein and the thymus gland. So these are the relations of the arch of aorta superiorly. Then coming to the inferior relations of the arch of aorta. Inferior relations of the arch of aorta, the left bronchus, as you can see in this diagram, and bifurcation of the pulmonary trunk into right and left pulmonary arteries. Then ligamentum arteriosum, you can see here, this is the ligamentum arteriosum connecting arch of aorta with the pulmonary trunk. Okay, so this is ligamentum arteriosum. Then left recurrent laryngeal nerve and superficial cardiac plexus. So these are the relations of the arch of aorta inferiorly. So we have seen the relations anterior and to the left, posterior and to the right, superior relations we have seen, and these are the inferior relations of the arch of aorta. Now coming to the applied anatomy related to the aorta, aortic knuckle. In X-ray chest PA view, posterior anterior view of the chest, the shadow of arch of aorta appears as a small bulb-like projection in the upper end of the left margin of the cardiac shadow termed as aortic knuckle. This shadow we can make out here, the AO knuckle or the aortic knuckle in the X-ray appears as a small bulb-like projection. Okay, the aortic knuckle may becomes notable in old age, so it is prominent in old age due to undue folding of the arch of aorta by atherosclerosis. Now next moving on to the coarctation of the aorta. So it is a congenital narrowing of the aorta, as you can see in this diagram, proximal or distal to the entrance of the ductus arteriosus. Accordingly, it is named preductal type and postductal type of coarctation of aorta. It is probably takes place because of the hyperinvolution of the ductus arteriosus. Okay. What are the clinical features of the coarctation of the aorta? There is a difference in the blood pressure of the upper and lower limbs. That is high blood pressure in the upper limbs and low unrecordable blood pressure in the lower limbs. Then notching of the lower border of the ribs because of the dilatation of engorged posterior intercostal arteries. So we can make out the depressions over the lower border of the ribs because of the dilatation of the engorged posterior intercostal arteries. Then pulsating scapula is also one of the clinical feature of the coarctation of the aorta. So what is this? What is this pulsating scapula? The back and scapular region, as you can see here, the back and the scapular region, in cases of coarctation of the aorta, distal to the origin of subclavian artery, blood will be diverted to the subclavian artery, then get back to the descending aorta through the intercostal arteries in the scapular anastomosis. Okay, so the scapula may even pulsate with the heartbeat. So that is called the pulsating scapula. Okay, which can be seen in the coarctation of the aorta. Now one more condition, we have the patent ductus arteriosus. As you can see in this diagram, in fetal life the pulmonary trunk is connected to the arch of aorta, so just distal to the origin of left subclavian artery by a short channel termed as ductus arteriosus. Now normally after beginning it closes functionally inside a week and anatomically inside 4 to 12 weeks. So the obliterated ductus arteriosus, if it persists, we say obliterated ductus arteriosus and named as ligamentum arteriosum. Non-obliterated ductus arteriosum is referred as patent ductus arteriosus. Okay, so if it is obliterated, we say ligamentum arteriosum. If it is non-obliterated, we say patent ductus arteriosus. Now aneurysm of arch of aorta. This is one more condition, clinical condition related to the arch of aorta, aneurysm of the arch of aorta. It is a localized dilatation of the arch of aorta. You can see in this diagram, there is an enormous dilatation of the aortic arch. It causes compression of the neighboring structures in the superior mediastinum, producing mediastinal syndrome. The characteristic clinical sign in this condition is a tracheal tuga, that is a feeling of tugging sensation in the suprasternal notch. So pulling sensation, the tugging sensation is nothing but pulling sensation in the suprasternal notch. So this is about the aneurysm of the arch of aorta. Abnormal dilatation of the arch of aorta results in compression of the neighboring structures in the superior mediastinum. Now in this cadaveric image of the arch of aorta, we can make out the branches of the arch of aorta, the brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid and left subclavian artery. So these are the three main branches from the arch of aorta. You must remember these three branches arising from the arch of aorta. Now sometimes occasionally an artery supplying the thyroid gland also emerges from the arch of aorta, that is the arteria thyroidea ima artery, right? Occasionally you see the origin of thyroidea ima artery from the arch of aorta. Now, let us discuss about descending thoracic aorta. Descending thoracic aorta is a section of thoracic aorta which is contained in the posterior mediastinum. So as you can see in this picture, this is the descending thoracic aorta. It is present in the posterior mediastinum. It arises at the level of T4 vertebra. As you can see in this diagram, we can make out the vertebral bodies over here, the T1, T2, T3 and T4. So it arises at the level of T4 vertebra as a continuation of the arch of aorta, and it also terminates anterior to the lower boundary of T12 vertebra. Right, it terminates anterior to the lower boundary of T12 vertebra with the aortic hiatus of the diaphragm. It initially begins to the left of the vertebral column. As you can see in this picture, it initially begins towards the left of the vertebral column, but approaches the midline as it descends. So then it approaches in the midline as it descends. It leaves the thorax via the thoracic aortic hiatus in the diaphragm and becomes the abdominal aorta. Now, relations of the thoracic aorta. Anteriorly from above downwards, we can make out in this picture the left bronchus and the root of the left lung, the pericardium over the base of the heart, which is not shown here, then the esophagus related anteriorly, then the diaphragm. So these are the structures from above downwards which are related to the thoracic aorta. So from above downwards, the left bronchus and the root of the left lung, pericardium over the base of the heart, and esophagus and the diaphragm. Then posteriorly, the bodies of the thoracic vertebrae T5, T6, T7 lie on its right side. So bodies of the T5, T6 and T7 lie on its right side, while the bodies of the lower 5 thoracic vertebrae, that is from T8 to T12, lie behind the thoracic aorta. Then we have superior hemiazygous vein. It crosses behind at the level of T8 vertebra. As you can see in this diagram, the superior hemiazygous vein, also known as the accessory hemiazygous vein. So accessory hemiazygous vein or the superior hemiazygous vein, one and the same. These are the structures which are related posteriorly. Then also the inferior hemiazygous vein, the inferior hemiazygous vein crosses behind the thoracic vertebra, thoracic aorta at the level of T9 vertebra. Now on its right, two structures lie on the posterior lateral side of the descending aorta along its whole length. These are the azygous veins and thoracic duct. Azygous veins and thoracic duct. The esophagus lie to the right side of the upper part of the descending aorta, opposite the T5, T6 and T7 vertebrae. The mediastinal surface of the lung on the right side of its lower part. Now on its left, the left mediastinal pleura and the lung. So these are the relations of the descending thoracic aorta. Anteriorly, posteriorly, bodies of the T5, T6, T7, and in the lower part of the descending thoracic aorta, posteriorly we have T8 to T12 vertebrae. The superior hemiazygous vein, also known as the accessory hemiazygous vein, it crosses behind at the level of T8. Inferior hemiazygous vein crosses behind at the level of T9. On its right, two structures lie on the posterior lateral side of the descending thoracic aorta. These are the azygous veins and the thoracic duct. Right? The esophagus lies to the right side of the upper part of the descending thoracic aorta. That we can see here. In the upper part, it is on the right side. The mediastinal surface of the left lung on the right side of its lower part. So on its left we have the left mediastinal pleura and the lung. Now coming to the branches of the thoracic aorta, which is very, very important. So there are numerous branches arising from the descending thoracic aorta. We have pericardial branches, a few small vessels to the posterior surface of the pericardial sac. So we can make out here the pericardial branches. Then the bronchial arteries, they vary in number and size, and originally usually two left bronchial arteries from the thoracic aorta. So we have two left bronchial arteries which are arising from the descending thoracic aorta, and one right bronchial artery from the third posterior intercostal artery or the upper left bronchial artery. So remember students that we have the pericardial branches arising from the descending thoracic aorta. Then we have bronchial arteries, two left bronchial arteries from the thoracic aorta and one right bronchial artery from third intercostal artery, third posterior intercostal artery or the upper left bronchial artery, you can say. Then we have esophageal branches. Esophageal branches, you can see here the esophageal branches, 4 or 5 vessels from the anterior aspect of the thoracic aorta we can make out here in this diagram, the esophageal branches from the descending thoracic aorta, which form continuous anastomotic chain. Connections include esophageal branches of the inferior thyroid artery superiorly and esophageal branches of the left inferior phrenic and left gastric arteries inferiorly. So these arteries, they form anastomosis with the other arteries. Then mediastinal branches, we have several small branches supplying the lymph nodes, vessels, nerves and areolar tissue in the posterior mediastinum. Then we have, these are the important branches from the descending thoracic aorta. They are the posterior intercostal arteries. Usually 9 pairs of vessels branching from the posterior surface of the thoracic aorta usually supply the lower 9 intercostal spaces. First 2 spaces are supplied by supreme intercostal artery, branch of the costocervical trunk. So these are the branches we can make out, the posterior intercostal arteries supplying the intercostal spaces. Then we have superior phrenic artery. The name itself tells you that it supplies the diaphragm. The small vessels of the lower part of the thoracic aorta supplying the posterior part of the and of the superior surface of the diaphragm, the anastomose with the musculophrenic and pericardiophrenic arteries. This is superior phrenic artery. Then subcostal artery. Subcostal artery, the lowest pair of branches from the descending thoracic aorta located inferior to the 12th rib, which are known as the subcostal artery, we can make out here. Okay, so subcostal arteries, phrenic arteries supplying the diaphragm, posterior intercostal arteries supplying the intercostal spaces, mediastinal branches supplying the structures in the posterior mediastinum, esophageal branches supply the esophagus and also they take part in the anastomosis between the different vessels, and bronchial arteries, they vary in number, 2 left bronchial arteries, 1 right bronchial artery. Then pericardial branches which are supplying the posterior surface of the pericardial sac. So these are the branches from the descending thoracic aorta. All these branches are very, very important, you have to remember, and it is easy to remember also because the name itself, it tells you that the area which is supplied by these arteries. So with this we have come to the conclusion. We can see here the aorta, the thoracic aorta and the abdominal aorta, right? So from the thoracic aorta we have branches like intercostal arteries, the posterior intercostal arteries which are paired, and superior phrenic arteries, right? Then we have the bronchial arteries, the pericardial arteries supplying the pericardium, esophageal arteries supplying the esophagus, mediastinal arteries supplying the mediastinal structures. So this is about the thoracic part of the aorta. Right, in the abdomen we'll discuss the abdominal aorta, right? That is after the exit of the aorta from the opening of the aortic opening of the diaphragm, right? So from there, from the aortic opening of the diaphragm, the aorta enters the abdominal cavity, then where it terminates as right and left common iliac arteries, and then gives various branches. So about the abdominal aorta and branches from the abdominal aorta, that will be discussed in the abdomen, okay? But since we are discussing about thorax, you must know what are the branches of the arch of aorta, what are the relations of the arch of aorta, and what is descending thoracic aorta, what are the branches from the descending thoracic aorta, and what are the relations of the descending thoracic aorta, right? Which are very, very important, and particularly in the competency code it is being mentioned that they are going to ask you about the arch of aorta and descending thoracic aorta in detail. So ascending aorta, you do not have a separate question for the ascending aorta as per the new curriculum, okay? So I suggest my students to focus on the arch of aorta, its relations and applied anatomy related to it, and descending thoracic aorta, its relations and the branches from the descending thoracic aorta. Thank you very much. I hope you have understood this class. For any clarifications, you can ask me or you can text me. Thank you. Goodbye.